Welcome back, college baseball fans. We here at College Baseball Central bring you the Pac-12 special preview here. Getting ready for college baseball season. We're really excited. Today I'm joined by Jake McKeever
Happy to be here.
and having Alex Day back. Welcome back, Alex.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I've been MIA for a little while, but glad to be back. Getting ready excited for the season to start.
Yeah, I think that we're all excited. We're 57 days out, so we're getting. This is what we have one more preview show after this, which is going to be Big Ten and other conferences. We're really excited, man. College baseball is what it's about. It's the lifeblood here. We're basically done with football, unless you're one of the final four teams here. You don't really care about your football team. Let's get into baseball. This is where it matters. We love it.
Basketball doesn't exist.
Yeah, basketball doesn't matter to us baseball fans. Let's be honest. It's just they get to stand in a warm gym all day and shoot balls. We don't care about that stuff. We're ready for baseball. Baseball starts in February. That's what matters. We're getting there. So we're going to go through our rankings here, 1 through 11. 11 through 1. And then we're going to talk about every team. And then we're going to break down our player of the year, pitcher of the year, freshman of the year, dark horse, and series of the year, like we do every single episode. So let's get started here. Number 11, we have Washington State coming in number 11. I know that Coach Brian Green has done a really good job. He's had 3 straight winning seasons. I think they're still behind. Jake, where are they at here this year?
I think they're kind of replacing a lot of pieces on this side. They were 27 and 26 last year, so just a hair above 500. Played a lot of weird series. I feel like they had a really long Texas road trip. They did beat Oregon and Arizona State, but for some reason they lost a series to Cal. They're going to have kind of an odd non-conference schedule this year that I think is borderline terrible. So we really won't know how good this team is until they play Oregon State that first weekend. The pros of this team is they get a lot of innings back, but the cons of this team is they get a lot of innings back. And they really didn't have a very good ERA, and it was kind of the weak point of the team. So it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of where they do. And especially when you're a northern team that plays a lot of the southern teams, that's going to kind of be tough on your scheduling. So it'll be really interesting to see how Washington State does this year.
Yeah, like I said, Brian Green, the 3 straight winning seasons, but you start off with Oregon State once you get to Pac-12 play. The preseason schedule is kind of in their favor, so they should win a good load of ball games going into the Pac-12 play. You got Jacob McKeon coming back, huge offensive starter, with Bryce Matthews coming back also. Oregon State transfer Greg Fuchs, who had a lot of at-bats for the Beavers last year. He transferred up to Washington State to be back up at home there. Grant Taylor eating up a lot of innings, like Jake said. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he's coming back with all that experience from last year. They got JC transfer Shane Spencer coming in, right-handed pitcher who's going to be in the weekend rotation immediately. And then they got freshman incoming pitcher Ryan Orr. So they think they've shored up their pitching issues. I just don't see this Washington State taking that next step forward yet. I think Brian Green's done a terrific job. I just don't think that this is the year that they get above that. Maybe they finish anywhere from 11 to 8, but I don't see them finishing above 8.
I don't think they finish 11, and we'll kind of get into why I think that, but I think they're going to be a little bit higher than 11, if I'm being honest. I think they'll be 10, but definitely not 11.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at teams that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, we got the Utahs, the Cals, the Washingtons, the USCs. There's some teams in there that they could definitely finish ahead of, so we'll see how this Pac-12 plays out. I do like the fact that when we're talking about our 11th team, they had a winning record last year. They're looking for a winning record this year. It's good for the Pac when you're talking about having winning records down there. Going to our next team, number 10, we've got Utah. Alex, I'm going to let you start with this Utah team. It's a little different. It's a little old school type of running it. How are we looking at this Utah ball club?
Well, they had kind of a rough year last year. They were just under 500 last year. 10 and 20 in conference play. It's just that not a traditionally strong, program there at Utah. I think they're going to probably be hovering around, the same kind of numbers, hovering around 500. They've got some winnable series, kind of towards the beginning. They're going to a tournament with Houston and Incarnate Word and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I think those are some winnable games. They've got a series with San Francisco to start it off. But then they've got UTSA. That's going to be a tough series for them. Midweek against Cal State Fullerton, and then they're right into conference play. And so I think it's going to be an uphill climb for them for sure.
Yeah, they got a couple freshmen coming in, and Caden Carpenter, big lefty pop, and Cameron Gurney. they're going to have to get those innings early off before they get to Pac-12 play, or they're not going to be ready for the pitching that's in the Pac-12. Jake, when you look at this Utah team, what can they do right, and how can they be above where they're at right here at 10?
I think it all kind of starts with Landon Frey. He started 52 of 54 games for him last year, and he kind of is their best player. They did have kind of an up and down season, like a lot of teams in the pack near the bottom. They did beat Arizona, and they were right in the thick of it. And then they kind of just lost 11 straight to just have bottom out there. My pros for this team is they play in a minor league stadium. That's really about the only pro that I could find. I think they're going to be kind of a Pac-12 bottom feeder, I guess Pac-11 bottom feeder, and more of the same for kind of how we're talking about with Washington State. They're just not going to have the pitching that I think some of these elite teams have. And down the road, I think that's going to come back to bite them.
Yeah, Cam Day had a rough freshman season, but he did start 14 games. So he does have that Pac-12 experience coming back. I just don't think that they have the pitching. I think you're right. They just don't have the pitching to be successful in this league. But they do have TJ Clarkson coming back, 284, 11 home runs. They play in a gigantic ballpark. They play in a minor league ballpark, and it's huge down there, and it's tough to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So playing small ball, but I just don't think they have the pitching and defense to do it. We'll see what happens here in the next few years, but I think that they're building something again like Washington State, where they're trying to get in the recruits, trying to be a young team and try to rebuild this program. So moving on to our number 9 team, we've got Cal. They are an interesting team. They played really tough against good opponents and played really badly against bad opponents. So they've kind of played the level of people they were playing. Alex, when you look at this team, what stands out to you?
With Cal, that's a team that, I think it's kind of what we were talking about along the same lines as Washington State and Utah. Pitching's kind of their bugaboo, and, they just need to find a little bit more consistency on the mound if they want to try and take that next step. I mean, they were just over 500 last year, and I think that they can. I think they can. They've got some players in there that just need to take the next step in their development. I think they can make a little bit of noise. I think maybe middle of the pack Pac-12 team.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on Dom Soto coming back 336 in 40 games last year. Rodney Green Jr. They lose a lot of other offense, though. No Dylan Beavers to save you. No guy that's sitting in the middle of the lineup there giving you those RBIs and home runs. They do have JC transfer Tyler Staszowski coming in, and freshman Austin Turkleton, a two-way player. Freshman Jack Kierer is also going to be on the mound. It's going to be an interesting team because it is a younger ball club down there at Cal. I just don't see the experience and the pitching again to be successful in this league. So Cal's going to have some troubles. I don't see them getting too high in the league this year. Moving on to our number 8 team, Washington is really an interesting thing. New head coach, new batting coach. They got all sorts of new coaches coming in. Jake, when we look at this Washington team, what are we looking for?
I think what we're looking for is just kind of some of those innings that we were talking about that a lot of these teams are kind of chasing. They are getting McKay Barney back, and I think that's a really big key. He's going to be bringing in his 15-game hitting streak that he ended the season on last year. Kind of a disappointing season by Washington standards, finished 14-16. Swept UCLA and then lost to Utah is kind of a common theme I've noticed. But they do play an easier out-of-conference schedule, and I think they do play one of the weirdest midweek games. They play Tulane on a midweek game, so it'll be really interesting. I'm excited for that one to see how Tulane's body kind of adapts playing a midweek game in Washington.
It's tough. The old sailgating up there in the cove there. It'll be interesting to see how teams adapt to going up there and playing on the road. I know Pac-12 teams are used to it, but a few series up there for other teams. Alex, what are we looking for this Washington team?
Well, first year under new head coach Jason Kelly. Familiar with him from his time down in Baton Rouge. And, he's a really good pitching coach. I think he did some great things with the LSU pitching staff, last year. And I look for him to do some of those same kind of things with the Washington pitching staff, really, help those guys take the next step in their development and, be able to manage them well and put them in situations for them to be successful.
Jared
really
Ingman.
good at that.
Yeah, Jared Ingman, Calvin Kurashev. These are pitchers that were pitched a lot of innings last year, a lot of games last year. So he's getting some guys that have some experience back. That's big for them. I think Will Simpson had a down year from what he wanted, 281, 11 home runs. I expect a big bounce back season from him. He could be up in the 15 to 20 home run range. Big right-handed hitter. Also, Michael Snyder coming back, 282, 6 home runs. It's going to be very interesting. They do have JC transfer Jeter Wybera coming in, who's great. And then they also have freshman Avia Arquette, plug-and-play guy. He's going to come in. He might start at shortstop day one for this ball club. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here with this Washington team. It's going to come down to coaching. It's going to be what happens here. Seeing as we're talking about coaching, we have a whole new staff again at USC, our number 7 ball club. When we look at this team here, Jake, what is it about USC that has us just slightly above Washington? I think they were almost equal in our ratings.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's just the name. I was very, very low on USC. I think I had them dead last. They kind of had a Kansas treatment where they were bad last year and then they lost all of their best players. I do kind of like the coaching staff that they have coming over from Grand Canyon, and they got a couple really good assistants, but it's going to take a few years to build this program because I think the last coach was complaining about how far behind USC was in baseball compared to some of the other Pac-12 schools. So I kind of see more of the same as they had last year. I know for a while there, for our older listeners, I was very high on USC, and I picked them to go in and beat UCLA, and that seemed to be kind of the high point of their season. And I think we're going to be talking about more of the same here, where it's going to be one of these series that they shouldn't win, and that's going to be their Super Bowl, because they're probably going to be a lot worse than they were last year, and they were 8-22 in the Pac-12.
Yeah, it's a tough team. I think that the addition of that coaching staff coming over from Grand Canyon and adding Andy Jenkins from Washington, who has a lot of Pac-12 experience as a player also and a coach. Adrian Colon Rosado, he's their guy. He had 298, 8 home runs. They lost a lot of other players to the transfer portal. They lost a lot of pitching. They kept Tyler Stromsborg. I'm surprised with how much guys that they lost. They brought in a ton of transfers also. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team melds. Freshman Ethan Hedges coming in. He's going to be a third baseman. Kakia Harrison, who some of you might know, his brother KJ Harrison was a standout for the Beavers. He's coming in. He's going to get some time there. We'll see what happens when he moves right into that USC lineup. So it's going to be interesting. They have to replace 2 catchers also who transferred out. So they got Luca DePaulo and Jacob Galloway, 2 freshmen who are going to compete for the job. Being a freshman catcher at the Pac-12 is very difficult. So it'll be interesting to see if if either one of those guys can even win the job, because it's tough to come down there and all of a sudden you're catching on a Friday, Saturday, Sundays down at Stanford. That's not the easiest thing in the world. So moving on to our next team here, Alex, we're going to talk about Arizona State. Willie Bloomquist has done a job. He's brought in the number 1 transfer recruiting class. Are they going to be good enough? What is this ASU team doing? Are they going to turn it around and be the ASU of old?
Well, if you listen to our colleague Noah, they're going to be the next coming of the old USC. They're going to be they're going to win the Pac-12. They're going to go to Omaha. I'm not quite ready to say that for Willie Bloomquist down there, but I think there's definitely a lot of reason for some excitement. I think that they've got some really nice pieces. They brought in some really nice pieces from the transfer portal. And, if they can put it all together, if they can make that collection of talent a team, then they have a real shot at being, I think they have a shot at winning the Pac-12. I don't know if they'll actually do it, but I think that they'll certainly be around that top of the Pac-12 when it comes into the season.
Yeah, I think we have them right here at 6 right now because we don't know what these guys are going to do that are coming in.
Exactly.
So they kept Ryan Campos, 357 hitter as a freshman. Will Rogers, 299 and 9 home runs as a freshman. Jacob Tobias comes back. But they're bringing in freshman Florida State transfer left-handed pitcher Ross Dunn. He's going to be the front end of probably their weekend rotation. Shortstop Luke Keishel's coming in. And then they got a couple of infield. They got all sorts of freshmen coming in Isaiah Jackson, new Contrades, the Hawaii Gatorade Player of the Year, and then Dante Turgeon, big pop. I'm going to be interested to see what this team does with all those guys. Can they meld together? Can they be a D1 program? There's something to be said when you bring in a bunch of JC guys that they may not meld together and be good enough. But if anybody's going to do it, I like Willie Bloomquist down there at Arizona State. Their ceiling is high. I don't see them dropping down much lower than 8 this year for the Pac-12 play. Moving on, we got number 5, Oregon Ducks. I'm just, that seems about right. Alex, tell us about this Oregon Duck team.
Well, they had a really good run to the, hosting the regionals and, a couple years ago. But, last year, not quite as good of a run. And I think they're definitely going to be a tournament team. I don't know if they'll be a hosting team this year, but they're going to be right around that conversation,
Yeah, it's a weird Oregon Duck team. They have Tanner Smith returning. He was big, 317, 11 home runs. Jacob Walsh is their guy, I think, at first base. He's got huge pop. It's going to be interesting to see how his game changes from last year to this year being the full-time starter there at first. Colby Shade, Gavin Grant. Jake, when we look at this team, what can the Ducks do that can put them in a position to win here? I know Coach Waz has done a terrific job with this team. What are they doing here this year to be better than they were last year?
Kind of like their softball team, I think they're going out and playing some of these better teams early on. They kind of have a truly, I call it a baseball niche type schedule. They're playing UCSB, they're playing San Diego that, casual fans aren't going to be like, oh, wow, we play these teams. But these are going to be great teams. We're going to see how good this Oregon team is very early. And it all starts with Colby Shade. I think Logan Marcato, too, on the mound. I think he's going to have a kind of step ahead year. And I kind of see Oregon. I know that this is a little bit low for them at 5. Obviously, with Oregon State being their big brother, I feel like they're almost kind of pressured to do a lot better than they are at baseball. And you got to remember, they were in their regional last year. They had a really tough draw with Louisville and Michigan. And it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of how they compare against Oregon State, because that kind of always is their measuring stick, it seems.
Yeah, and last year going 0-5 against Oregon State, lost 3 up in Corvallis, lost 2 at home there during midweek games. That was a tough thing for them to swallow. They did not like that. I see them bouncing back a little bit this year. Isaac Aon and RJ Gordon return on the mound for them, so they have that kind of coming in. Also, freshman Carter Garrett coming in and played shortstop right away. I think his bat may not be what we need at the Pac-12 level, but I think fielding-wise and defensively, he's going to be a big step up for them at shortstop. So I expect this Oregon team to perform better. I think that they are a tournament team this year. I just want to see them take that next step, and I think it starts with pitching. I think you're right, Jake. It's going to be down to pitching to see what they can do. Number 4, we've got Arizona. Jake, this Arizona club is a little weird to me, and then we have them higher than Oregon is also strange. We're like right on the border there. Tell us about this Arizona club.
I really don't know how to feel about this Arizona club, because they had probably one of the weirder schedules last year. They beat, it seemed like, the top big dogs of the Pac-12, and then they lost to kind of the trash of the Pac-12, and it didn't really do there. They're going to lose Daniel Susak, so that'll be kind of interesting to see how they go there. But they almost kind of remind me of A&M football, where when they're supposed to do really good, they do really bad, and then when they're supposed to do really bad, they do really good. So I think if we just kind of lower our expectations for Arizona, say they're not going to miss the tournament, they could, sky's the limit for them. They can go out in Omaha. But as long as I think they kind of stay away from their press clippings, I think they're going to be fine. They play warm weather ball. The teams come to play them. I'm kind of really high on Arizona, and I really don't want to say that because I'll probably, read their press clippings.
Yeah, I look at this team, and you look at Chase Davis, 289, 18 home runs. That's a great start. Where else do they go from there, Alex? Who else do they got? Who's going to fill in these holes?
Well, they got that transfer in Kiko Romero, and I think he's somebody that they're gonna lean on, offensively, and then they still got TJ Nichols on the mound, and I think he was a real stalwart for them this last year. So I think look for him to continue, and look for Kiko Romero to they're going to try and replace some of that production from Daniel Susak with Romero.
Yeah, I got to see Romero firsthand. He was a Corvallis Knights WCL title this year. He was also the Junior College World Series MVP last season. So that guy's going to have to eat up some stats there for Arizona. They got Tommy Splain. They got Garrett Caulfield back. Those are 2 guys that got a lot of time last year as younger players, both freshmen. They're transferring in another pitcher for the weekend rotation, Aiden May. Big time coming in, big right-hander, going to have to eat up a lot of innings there. But, yeah, they have a lot of weird players coming in as freshmen too. Brendan Summerhill, good outfielder, good skills, but doesn't really have a huge stick. They also have Xavier Esker, who is, yes, son of David Esker, Stanford's head coach. He went to Arizona, which is kind of a strange move. I looked that up today. I'm like, boy, that's a power play there on dad there going down to play first year. So I like what this Arizona team's done. Chip Hale in the second year is going to have to just be elite if they want to try to win this conference. But I see them right there. I think their ceiling's honestly at 4, and I think that they maybe play a little bit worse than that. So we'll see moving on this season here. We're going to go on to our number 3 team, which is a point of controversy. These top 3 teams are all very close in a lot of people's opinion. Stanford we have at number 3. I had them actually at number 3 as well, so I have Stanford at 3. Jake, when we look at this team, they lose a lot, but they still have a lot coming back.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Stanford team. I think their kind of only Achilles heel is as long as they don't wear black in elimination games, I think they'll be good. Um, you got to understand, this team went a month without losing a game. They got just scorching hot, and they kind of took away the Pac-12 title from Mark's Beavers, so I'm sure there's a little bit of animosity there. I do kind of expect more from Bowser this year. He is a big bat in the middle of that lineup, but he's got to learn to hit for average. And then also, the Swiss Army knife, as Noah likes to call him, Braden Montgomery, pride of Mississippi. I expect a lot more out of him too. Hopefully, he gets a few more innings on the mound last year. Had a above 5 ERA, so I think that they either don't use him or use him very early. But there's a lot to like about this Stanford team, and I think that them and Oregon State have to feel like the two favorites.
Yeah, when you return guys like Carter Graham, who had 22 home runs last year, Drew Bowser, who you already said, Tommy Troy, Eddie Park, and of course Braden Montgomery, who might be the most electric player on the West Coast here. The dude throws almost 100 miles an hour and plays right field like a champ out there every single day. I don't know if he's going to be playing right field. He might move to center now this year. We'll see what happens there. The problem for me is pitching. I know that they have Quinn Matthews coming back and Drew Dowd, but Matthews really struggled and kind of lost his starting job. I wonder if he gets that back this year. So it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as pitching goes. But yeah, they have freshman Malcolm Moore, who they don't have a position for him yet because he doesn't really have the skills to be a D1 defender. But they're going to put him out there and let him get him some at bats. So it'll be interesting to see what the Stanford club does. I think that their ability is to win the league. They're anywhere in there, but I don't see them dropping below 3. I think that this club is just too good with David Esker at the head. So I expect Stanford to be great this year. I would be surprised if it's anything else. So going to our number 2 team, my Oregon State Beavers. Yes, I got my Beaver shirt on. Everybody who knows me knows I cover the Beavers. Alex, I'm going to let you talk first about this team, but what do we like about Oregon State this year?
Well, they're going to be replacing their entire outfield. You're replacing Cooper Jerpy, but you still have some nice pieces. I mean, you got Travis Bazana, the freshman of the year last year, and they've still got some pieces on the mound. They're bringing back their stopper and Ben Ferrer and Garrett Foster. He just mashed last year at first base, and so I think they may have lost a lot, but there's still a lot there. There's a lot to like about that club.
Yeah, Garrett Forster was in the top 5 for on-base percentage. He took a lot of walks last year. Great eye. He sat between those Boyd and Melton a lot last year, so he got a lot of great at-bats. I expect him to have more home runs this year. He just hit the 9, but he didn't have a single home run until late into the season, so he got hot late. I expect him to get hot a little earlier. They have Tanner Smith, starting catcher, coming back. He's going to be a dude. I think he's going to hit double-digit home runs. Jay Petrowski is going to be out there. Mason Guerra, TJ Wheeler, Micah McDowell, Brady Casper. Like the list just goes on and on. Kyle Dernetti. There's a lot of talent on this team. A lot of guys are fighting for time. And then you go to the pitching side. Like you said, Jacob Komatz won 8 games last year, and he's coming back. He was a freshman last year, so I expect him to get more innings this year. Jaron Hunter, AJ Lattery, Ryan Brown, Ben Ferrer, who you talked about already. Brock Townsend added a couple miles an hour to his fastball. Justin Thornton looks good. David Grew, David Case. I mean, this team has so many players coming in. And then you look at the guys like Gavin Turley, who could have been a top 2 round draft pick. He's coming in. He's going to have to fight for some time to get some outfield time out there. It's going to be very interesting to see what this Oregon State team does as far as where they're going to play guys, who they're going to give opportunities to, because there's a lot of guys. You can say there's 15 guys right now that deserve playing time. So I look forward to seeing this team. Again, I think that this ball club has the chances to win a title. I hope that they stay in the top 3 no matter what, but this is a team that could go either way. They have a lot of people coming back, but we'll see what happens here. Moving on to our number 1 team. Jake, I'm going to let you start off. It's clearly UCLA. Everybody had them. They had the number 1 recruiting class last year. They have a young team coming back. What do we like about this UCLA club?
I think their experience, and I know that kind of sounds weird to say since a lot of them are now sophomores, they kind of almost had a storybook season last year in terms of being a freshman year. They kind of played a little bit above their weight class. They got into a really tough regional and kind of lost in a heartbreaking fashion. And I think UCLA really has to feel like the favorite. And this is probably about the first time since maybe the Bauer era in UCLA, where they almost feel like it's Omaha or bust because they just have so much talent. I'll get into some of their superlatives, but you look up and down this roster and they have pitching, they have hitting, they really have everything. I think the only thing is maybe fan support. So that's really their only kind of Achilles heel there.
You think that the newest Big Ten team's not going to get support down there in LA? It's insane to me. It's sad because the baseball program here has been very good at UCLA, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. Alex, when you look at this team, what do you like about UCLA?
Well, I think with UCLA, kind of with UCLA teams of old, right? It starts with pitching. Their pitching is going to be phenomenal this year. They had that number one recruiting class that came in a couple years ago. Those guys are older and they've been in the program now. They've got some experience. And I think, like Jake said, they're the favorites and they're ready to explode.
Yeah, I think losing Thatcher Hurd to your Tigers, that kind of hurts because he would have been the Friday starter. He would have been the dude. Kelly Austin's a great guy. Jake Brooks coming back. Two good pitchers there. They got a freshman outfielder, Peyton Brennan, who's going to be fighting for time out there. They did have the number one class a year ago. Cody Schreier, Carson Yates, Ethan Gorson, Kenny Oyama. These are guys that are good. Kyle Karros. They have a lot of talent. I don't know if they're going to be able to drive the ball out of the ballpark as much. I think that they're kind of be a small ball team again. So it is going to come down to pitching and defense, and that's what you need to win this conference anyway. So I'm just going to be interested to see if they have enough pitching to be elite and win the conference here. All right. We're going to go into our player of the year. So now that we've discussed all the teams here, we're going to go into player of the year. Alex, I'm going to let you start here. Who is your player of the year for the Pac-12?
I kind of went back and forth on this between Travis Bazzana and Braden Montgomery. But I'm going to have to go with Braden Montgomery just because I think he's going to have more opportunity to shine both on the mound and in the field. And with his bat, I just think he's going to be I think he's going to be a monster on both the mound and at the plate. So I just think it's going to be too much. But I like what Travis Bazzana, brings to the table as well. Yeah,
I really liked watching Bazzana swing this fall. He looks like he put on about 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, and he was crushing the ball at the ballpark. So it's going to be exciting to see whether he plays second base, whether he plays outfield. Who knows yet? We don't know where he's going to get, but he's going to get opportunities to hit. I love that. Braden Montgomery is probably the best player in the league, so I like that. Jake?
I had Braden Montgomery too, but I think kind of my dark horse is going to be Ethan Grosjean. Set the freshman record for doubles last year for UCLA, All-American. If UCLA is going to be good, and I think this one almost kind of turns into almost like Cooper Jerpy last year, where it's the best player on the best team, and I think his bat really sticks out in this lineup. In a good way. Definitely not a bad way.
No, I think he's going to be good down there, and I think that they're going to have to lean on him harder. I think he needs more than the 4 home runs he hit last year. He hit a ton of doubles. He just didn't quite get the ball at the ballpark. Sources say that he's gotten a little bit stronger. He's hitting the ball. He's driving the ball more. This would be an easy award to say Carter Graham's going to win it for Stanford. I'm not going to do that. I really like Garrett Forrester this year. I think that he steps up big time for the Beavs. I think he sits in that 3-hole, the 4-hole, to wherever they end up putting him, and he crushes the ball. He's got Travis Bazzana around him. Tanner Smith's going to be around him. Mason Guerra. They have a lot of talent. TJ Wheeler. There's so many guys that can drive the ball out of the ballpark there for the Beavers. It's kind of a different Oregon State team than we've seen other than last year. So I'm excited to see that. So I'm going to pick Garrett Forrester as my player of the year for the Pac-12. Pitcher of the year, Jake, I'm going to let you start here. I know that this is kind of a weird award because there's a lot of guys out there in this league that could really win it.
Yeah, and I almost wrote down 3 or 4 names just in case someone stole one, but I'm going to go Ethan Flanagan again with the UCLA sweep. The lefty, it brings it from both sides, so he's kind of who I'm really, really excited about. And I really hate to do a 1-2 UCLA, but Ethan Flanagan, I just kept finding myself coming back to him.
If Flanagan is elite and his arm stays healthy all season, it's going to be tough to take that award away from him, especially if UCLA wins the conference. I like that pick. Alex, where are you at here with the Pac-12 Pitcher of the Year?
I'm actually going to go with a different UCLA pitcher with Jake Brooks. He started off the season so hot, and he kind of fizzled out towards the end of the season. I think he just got tired. But I think another year in that program, another year in that strength and conditioning program, I think I look for him to sustain his success throughout the season.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the same thing there, where Jacob Komatz was kind of the same thing. He started off so hot, but he got way more innings earlier than he was supposed to. And I think that those freshman arms that just get a little tired in this college season because they're not used to the grind and playing that much. I really do love Jacob Komatz. I'm going to go a different one here. I'm going to go Drew Dowd of Stanford. I think if Stanford has any chance of being elite, it's going to fall on his shoulders. He's going to have to either be the Friday or Saturday guy. And I think he has the arm talent. He was a starter for a lot of last year, did a lot of relief later. Drew Dowd is my pick for pitcher of the year. I really like him there at Stanford. Okay, there's a few choices in here, but I'm gonna let you start here first, Alex. Freshman of the year in the Pac-12.
This was a hard one. I do they do freshman of the year or do they do newcomer of the year? Because I know in the SEC they do newcomer of the year.
I believe it's freshman of the year.
Okay. I did mine based on newcomer of the year.
Well, you can give us that too. We'll take that.
So my newcomer of the year is Kiko Romero for Arizona State.
I kind of figured that's where you're going.
Yeah. I was
Kiko's gonna be a dude.
Freshman of the year. I was like, dang it.
I love Kiko Romero. Like I said, I got to see him play several times at Corvallis for the Corvallis Knights in the WCL. And with a wood bat, it's different. He was hitting the ball and it just jumped off his like, oh boy, he's built different. I think that he could be terrific and not a freshman, but he could be the newcomer of the year in the Pac-12. So I'll accept that. Jake, where are you going with freshman of the year?
I'm going to go Mason White out of Arizona. I think the only thing that's going to kind of hold him back is just spots. I know Arizona's bringing back 6 starters, but I think you're going to have to find a place for that bat because he just bangs the ball around the yard. So that's going to be my pick, is going to be Mason White.
Yeah, that's a problem. That this award is kind of like it's a participation award in the fact that you have to get at bats, you have to get time in the Pac-12. So that's why I'm going to go Avia Arquette from Washington. I think he steps in right away. I think he plays immediately, and that gives him the opportunities to be the freshman of the year. I think as long as he stays healthy and all through February, he's going to be the dude when they come to Pac-12 play. So I'm going to say Avia Arquette. That's my freshman of the year. All right, Jake, why don't you start us off here with your dark horse pick? I would like to say that this probably shouldn't be UCLA, OSU, Arizona, Stanford. Those teams probably shouldn't be your pick, but I'll let you go first here.
I'm going to go UW, the Washington Huskies. There's a lot that you have to like about this team. They score a bunch of runs. They bang the ball around the yard. Pitching kind of is their question mark, but it's always been their question mark. And this is a team that went to the College World Series a few years. I know that they really don't have any of those pieces from that team. And honestly, the way college baseball is now, it wouldn't surprise me if they had one random straggler from that team. But you have to like a lot when you have to look up and down this lineup. There's a ton of guys that you're just like, okay, I don't want to pitch to him, don't want to pitch to him. And at the end of the day, they're just going to have to pitch to these guys. So I think Washington's my true dark horse. I know that I got to get back from the Oklahoma State one from the Big 12.
Hey, I like it. I think Will Simpson's going to be their key, right? Like that's their big right-handed hitter. He's going to have to be a dude for them to be successful. So if he's great and he has a chance to win in that Pac-12 Player of the Year, maybe they have a chance to be in the title here, contenders. It's going to be tough this year with all the talent. Alex, who are you looking at as the dark horse for the Pac-12?
Well, I'm going to have to make a nod to Noah here and say Arizona State. I think they're the team that has the most variance in where they're going to end up. They could win, and that wouldn't shock me, or they could also be in the back half of the Pac-12, and that wouldn't shock me either. So I think they're the dark horse.
Yeah, Willie Bloomquist, like we talked about, they have the number 1 transfer class coming in. He's done a terrific job. This team's ceiling is 1. Like, let's be honest, they could win the Coupe, but they could also be 11, and we would just be like, well, they're kind of a coin flip every single week. So that's what they were last year. They really had some ups and downs. They played great some weekends, and other weekends they were bad. They're going to have to be much more consistent if they want to take that next step forward. Being a Beaver fan, this one's hard for me. I'm going to take the Ducks. Oregon Ducks are my dark horse. I didn't want to do it. Coach Waz is so good, though. He does such a good job recruiting. He has such a good job of building this program up. If you go down to that ballpark, it's gorgeous. All the facilities, they have everything in the world. There's no reason for this team to be unsuccessful this year. We have them at 5, which is probably fair, but they could realistically win the league. So they're my dark horse pick. Lots of talent returning, lots of guys coming in. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can stay hot and compete. I think that the measuring stick, like Jake said, is can they beat Oregon State this year. They get the Beavs at home for the Pac-12 series. So it's going to be, they got to take 2 or 3 to really be a chance of winning that conference this year. Now we've gone through these, I'm going to go to the series of the year. Alex, what is your series that you're most looking forward to in Pac-12 play?
There's 2 series in particular that I'm looking at. I mean, number 1, I feel like has to be Oregon State. I mean, just the rivalry there. Oregon's so bitter after last season, going 0-5. And so, I think that's just going to be a lot of fun to watch. hopefully Oregon State fans really show out for that one. I'm sure they will.
I went to both games down there, both midweek games, and there was more Oregon State fans than Oregon fans at both games. I expect it to be the same over the weekend series this year, so I will be there. I'm going to be very excited to cheer on my Beavs down at PK Park. Again, gorgeous facilities, but it's even better when the Beavers beat them down there, so I like that pick. Jake, where are you at with your best series this year?
I'm going to do another Oregon State series when they travel down to the farm March 17th that weekend when they play Stanford. I'm really looking forward to that one. It's kind of the two flagship teams of Pac-12 baseball. I know that teams kind of come and go, the UCLA's, Arizona State's, but it's always going to be Oregon State, Stanford in the Pac-12 for baseball, and I'm just really excited to see this one. I'm sure all 30 Stanford fans will be out and supporting their Cardinals, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
It's an early measuring stick to really see what team is going to be better this year. So you got Oregon State going down and playing at Stanford. Stanford took 2 or 3 last year at Oregon State. They had 2 extra inning games. It was just a great series. So I love that one. I'm going to go a little different one because I think it matters to both teams more. UCLA at Oregon is a big series this year, especially for the Oregon Ducks. I think if they can put up a fight, if they can get 2 or 3 at home against this UCLA club, they're going to say that they have a chance of winning this. If they get swept at home against UCLA, that's just a telltale sign of how their season's going to go. So I think that this is an important one here. UCLA at Oregon, March 10th, 11th, and 12th. Looking forward to seeing that one. All right, Alex, we've talked a lot about a lot of teams. I've talked a lot about the Beavers, but I'm going to let you talk about this. Does this Oregon State team losing their ace, losing their entire outfield, what are they going to do? Do they have enough pieces coming back here to make a run at the Pac-12 title?
Yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I mean, they absolutely have enough pieces returning. I mean, like we talked about with Forster and Bazana, and those guys out in the field. And then, you've got a ready-made closer in Ferrer, and they certainly have the pieces. I mean, I think this is a team that should have Omaha as their goal, as their stated goal. They should be in Omaha this year. I mean, and it's crazy to say when you think about the amount of talent that they lost off this team, but Oregon State's one of those programs like they don't stop, right? They reload, right?
Yeah.
And they are ready to go.
Yeah, Canham's done a great job of recruiting, getting these guys in there. Dorn's done a great job with that staff. This might be the most complete staff the Beavers have had in a long time. They got 10 guys that they can roll out there. And not even to mention they bring in transfer Trent Sellers, who had 20-plus wins in his career, won an NAIA title already. The guy just wants to be D1 ball player. He looked great in the fall. They're also bringing in a transfer, Ruben Cedejo, 5'2" guy. He might take over. He looks a lot like Boyd last year. I think he comes in, he might have a better season than Boyd had last year, which is tough to say considering Boyd got drafted so high in the MLB this year. But I look for Ruben Cedejo to be great. And, of course, Gavin Turley, everybody's list. He's one of the top freshmen in the conference here. I'm going to be interested to see if he gets playing time, but it's going to be really good to see what this team does moving forward. I think they have enough. I'm with you, Alex. I think that they can win this title.
And I think
Jake,
kind of another point, too, with them is when I know Cooper Jerpy's kind of departing, but I think it almost kind of raises the whole staff because Cooper Jerpy was just kind of the face of the staff. And you kind of forgot about a lot of these fringe guys. And now that he's gone, it almost makes their staff kind of feel more complete because they're just a really deep staff. He's not going to eat up. And it sounds weird to say because he got drafted. He was, Pac-12 Player of the Year, but he ate up some of those innings. So some of these younger guys are going to get a chance to shine. And they do kind of have the talent on the pitching staff to kind of replace that in a Moneyball style.
Yeah. They got, Jacob Kamatz, Jaron Hunter, these guys, AJ Lattery, Ryan Brown. They have guys that are going to eat up some innings that are very arm talented. So I'm excited to see what this team does. Again, Doran's done such a good job down there recruiting those pitchers and getting them ready to play and having a great fall off season. So speaking of another team in Oregon, Jake, Coach Waz at Oregon has built himself quite a team, multiple recruiting classes that are in the top section here. When does this team take the leap forward? Is it this year? Are we looking further down the line?
I think it's this year, and you kind of hinted at it earlier. Oregon has everything that you would want in a college baseball program. They have great facilities. They have all the training stuff. They have just about any Nike shoe that they would want. And this does kind of seem to be the year that they all pull it together. They had the 0-6 against Oregon State, and then that regional. It seemed like it almost just created a villain origin story for these Oregon Ducks. And I think the sky's the limit for them. It'll be really kind of an intriguing thing to see how they fare against the class of the Pac-12. But don't be surprised if they're hosting a regional this year up in Eugene.
Yeah, I won't be surprised. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jacob Walsh pops off and hits 20 home runs, becomes Pac-12 Player of the Year in that ballpark. The guy has a true talent. I think he was a little bit under the wash being in the Pac-12 as a freshman last year. Is just a little bit much for him coming down from Vegas. So he's going to be great. I think that this team can go as far as one here and win that conference. So, Alex, Arizona wants to be the class of the West. They were for so long. They were so good. Can Chip Hale get this team to win a title, or are they just a little bit behind those teams right now?
I don't think they're quite there yet. I think they're close, but I don't think they're quite there yet. You know, this team I feel like is going to go as far as their pitching staff can take them. You know, they've got some dudes that can mash, and so they're gonna put up offense, right? That's kind of their thing. They started under Jay Johnson, and they're continuing that theme. And so if they can, if they can get their pitching staff figured out, and I look for guys, they're going to rely on TJ Nichols, right? I mean, he's got a heck of an arm. He's got some great arm talent. He's got an upper 90s fastball, right? A high 80s slider. He's got real stuff. I look for a guy. They brought in a transfer, Derek Drees from the Big East, and he had the lowest ERA in the Big East last season. Just over 1. And so, if he can come in there and give them some quality innings, I think if they can shut teams down at the end, I think they've got the offense to be able to make some noise. But I don't think they're not in the class of Stanford or UCLA or those guys yet.
Yeah, I think they're just one tier behind because like Chase Davis, great. Transfer, Kiko Romero coming in, great. I just think they're just one step behind the Oregon States, the Stanfords, and the UCLAs this year. I think they're getting better. I love what Chip Hale's doing down there. He's making baseball fun again in Arizona, and so it was Willie Bloomquist over at Arizona State. So I think that what they're doing down there is great, but I think that they're just one step behind these other teams that have really gone forward in the last 10 to 15 years. Jake, well, you talked about it a lot. Is UCLA great, or is this just a cut above the rest of the year? Are they just a little bit better, or are they way better?
On paper, I feel like they're way better than the Pac-12, with the exception of kind of Oregon State and Stanford. But it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they manage expectations, because I'm sure a lot of these young freshmen, they've always been the guys, and they probably haven't had to go through the adversity as the guys. So that'll be kind of interesting to see, is how they kind of tamper their expectations, because when you lose that random midweek in the middle of the season, are you going to fold? They're going to lean heavily on their older guys, and I think that the only thing that's going to stop UCLA is UCLA getting in their own head. And they're an Omaha team on paper, but it's just kind of, can they get out of their own head?
They were highly successful last year as a very young team. They were more successful last year than anybody thought they would be. I think we all discussed it. We thought that they were a couple years away from being an elite talent. I think with that success that they shared last year, I think that puts them in that level to be elite talent. So I think it's them, Stanford, Oregon State, who you're looking for winning the title if you look on paper right now. So I do agree with you, Jake. I think that they're looking to go to Omaha. All right, Alex, I'm going to start with you here, and then Jake, I'm going to let you answer also. Stanford, are they a wagon? Are they a jalopy? We all love David Esker. What is this team? I can't figure it out.
I mean, I think they're a wagon. I mean, Drew Bowser was so much fun to watch towards the in the postseason last year. Braden Montgomery is must-see TV. They are a team that like we just talked about, right? They're a team that expects to be in Omaha and has the talent to be in Omaha next year. Has the talent to win the Pac-12. And they're absolutely a wagon.
They lost 2 guys to the draft who are very talented, and they still returned 80 home runs. Jake, is this a wagon or a jalopy?
I think it's a wagon, and especially in the new NIL era, Stanford's going to be one of those teams that you have to really cheer for. They're not going to get the big transfers. They're not going to get, the hot JUCO guys. It's going to be their guys, Braden Montgomery, and guys like that come in from around the country. And I think as a college baseball fan, you really have to root for Stanford, because they are kind of a vintage team from like 10, 15 years ago, where it's your core, let's win with it, bring a few guys in that are freshmen, and let's roll. I'm excited to see it. I wouldn't even say they're a wagon, because they're just a favorite at this point. They've been to Omaha 2 years in a row.
Yeah, Coach Esker's done such a great job down there, and he's got these guys believing that they are a great team. They are a great team, and he gets these guys prepared every single season they show up. They're always ready to play ball. They haven't been successful in Omaha. I'd like to see that side of a change. But yeah, they got to go out and try to win a title again this year. So that's where it comes down to. That's where they're coming in. They got to try to win a title. So, all right, final question here. I'm going to start with you, Jake. How many teams make Omaha from the Pac-12?
Sorry about my dad kind of jumping in there. I would say 3. I think it's going to be UCLA, Oregon State, and then a combination of Stanford, Arizona, Arizona State, one of those. But I think it's going to be 3.
Wow, 3. That's a big number here. We're running out of places for teams there. We only get 8 down there, but 3 is a lot. I mean, you could realistically have 3 from this team. There's a lot of talent there. Alex?
I look for 2 and maybe a third. Certainly, I think it'll be some combination of UCLA, Oregon State, and Stanford. I think 2 of those teams. I mean, maybe a third team, but I really think it'll be 2 of those 3.
Alex, I'm on the same exact page. I think it's 2 of those 3 teams go. I don't think we get surprised by an Arizona State. I don't think we get surprised by an Arizona. I think that in Oregon, I don't think we get surprised by them going to Omaha. I think those teams could be good and could make runs in the tournament. I don't think they get to Omaha. People don't realize how hard it is to be the final 8 teams and get to go down there. So I think it's 2 of those 3 teams, whether it's Arizona, Oregon State, Stanford, or UCLA. I think 2 of those 3 make it this year. So I think the Pac-12 is that good. Any final thoughts, Alex, for Pac-12?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a fun year in the Pac-12. I think baseball in Pac-12 is always fun. I think it's going to be interesting to see. SEC is going to be the best conference this year. They had a little bit of a down year last year, but I think they're going to be right back this year. And then the second best conference is going to be interesting to see whether it's the ACC or the Pac-12. There's a lot of good teams, a lot of good players in both conferences, and it should be a fun season to watch play out.
I agree. I think the Pac-12 took a huge leap forward this offseason. I think that they're going to be that next level. I think Stanford kind of has been pushing them. Oregon State's been pushing them. Let's see UCLA and Oregon and Arizona State make these jumps back to being great elite baseball teams. Jake?
I love the Pac-12 just because I think it's the only conference where 2 rivals, one's the best team and one's the worst team in UCLA and USC. And I just love how bad USC is as a program because of how good UCLA is. And it seems to be really easy for UCLA to do it, and USC just struggles. So that's my thing with the Pac-12 is just kind of the camaraderie. And it seems like that's just a hallmark of how great this conference is that USC is one of the best programs ever, and they neglected baseball. And now they're absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I am hoping USC makes the leap forward. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I think that they have the coaching staff in place. I really think that they have a lot of talent that's going to be wanting to come to USC after they see this coaching staff work. It's really interesting to look at this Pac-12 this year. I think you could literally have all 11 teams have winning records, and that would be incredible to see if all 11 teams can put off winning records. I think a lot of that's going to fall on Cal and Utah, but we're going to see what they can come up with down there. But I'm really excited. I think we're all excited here for Pac-12 baseball. We're all excited for baseball again. 57 days away. Can't wait. Thanks for joining us again on this Pac-12 preview. Again, if you guys have any questions, go on, like, and follow College Baseball Central. Follow each of us at our Twitter handles here that are posted up on the site here. We'd love to hear any questions you guys have. We want to answer things. We want to interact with the fans. We've been able to do it all over the place. I know Jake and I got to meet a lot of people in Omaha, which is a blast. So we want to do that some more. So get after us, guys. Come in and interact with us. Thank you so much, Jake and Alex.
See y'all
Thanks,
later.
guys.